KQ on the Avenue is made possible in part with funds from Genesee Valley Council of the Arts Aid to Localities program. Enjoy the show.
We'd like to welcome you to KQ on the Avenue. We'd like to welcome you to KQ on the Avenue. We'd like to welcome you to KQ on the Avenue. We'd like to welcome you to KQ on the Avenue.
So this is episode 2 of KQ on the Avenue. We are so excited that you guys get to tune in. This podcast exists to represent underrepresented voices in the arts, in literature and art, and all of the above. Thank you guys for tuning in. I am your host, Wayne Benson Jr.
And I'm Monique Franz, founding editor of Kinsman Quarterly and Kinsman Avenue Publishing.
And today we have our first guest on the podcast. Monique, would you introduce our guest for the people?
Yes, we have Noelle Christina Barnes in the house, and she was our 2024 grand prize winner of the African Diaspora Award. And she won with her fiction short story, Burning or a Bullet. It was fire. So we're here to celebrate her, the work that she does. She is from Florida. Is that right? You are from Florida. Born and raised in Florida. She was also nominated for the PEN, the 2025 PEN Robert J. Dow Short Story Prize for Emerging Writers. She writes about Black women, especially Black women of the South, as a daughter of lifelong public servants and a graduate of New York University's Gallatin School for Individualized Study. Her writing explores the resilience and complexity of Black Florida women. You go ahead, girl.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monique and Wayne. I am super excited to be here. From jump, the theme music had me vibing. So.
Right? You know what? That's Yolanda. Yolanda got those music making skills.
Yeah. Go ahead, Miss Simpson. I'm feeling it. And it's an honor and a joy to be here. I've been extremely blessed since I've connected with the Kinsman Quarterly and Kinsman Publishing community. And the blessings just keep flowing. I hope to be a blessing to you all as much as you're a blessing to me.
Oh, you already are.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Also, I want to say, because I just remembered today, actually, that it is National Women's Month.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Right.
Yes.
So Thank you both for being the women that you are. I appreciate y'all for everything that y'all do.
Wayne. We like those allies who appreciate us women. And and I love just putting our female authors on blast this month. And Noelle, she came to one of my classes before she actually won the award. So she's been around Kinsman Quarterly for the last couple of years. So we're so happy that you're here.
And also, just to lighten the mood, so we wanted to start off with a question that we didn't propose to you before the podcast, by the way. So get ready. So this question, just to get you thinking a little bit, right? If you could be in any fictional world for a month, what world would that be? If you could live there.
Wow, that's a really great question. Okay, any fictional world. You know what? The first thing that came to my mind is actually the book, The Celestine Prophecy. Are you all familiar with that?
No.
I am not. Please put us on.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so I must have read this book, if I want to say, 15 years ago, and I'm definitely aging myself, but it was my first introduction to these two characters are exploring like psychological and spiritual development and evolution, and they're finding different ways of connecting with the earth and God to help improve their kind of like psychic abilities almost, and abilities to connect and feel joy and fulfillment. So they're able to learn about clairvoyance and clairsentience and clairaudience, like clairvoyance being the ability to see clearly. Clairaudience is like where you can kind of get spiritual insights through hearing things that maybe others around you can't actually hear. And clairsentience is the ability to really like get information through feeling, and connecting with others' emotions. You're able to kind of sense what others are going through more deeply and intuitively. So, kind of improving those powers. We all have these natural latent powers, but when we practice them, like we're learning in Celestine Prophecy, this practice helps to grow the skills. And I just personally, find spiritual development in any setting where I can experience that. Like those are like my ideal settings and experiences. And I could see myself going on a spiritual journey there and making these discoveries and just helping to, elevate my consciousness and certain prophetic powers and that kind of thing, really excites me. So that would be the book that I.
What is the name of that book again? One more time.
Yeah.
Called The Celestine Prophecy.
The Celestine Prophecies.
Yes. It's a fabulous read. I highly recommend it.
All right. Okay. That
awesome.
world. I like that.
Yeah, I love that. One time I made a world when I was younger, and it was about ice cream. And I made, like Metropolitan ice cream, where it's like the strawberry. I made a world like that.
Oh, that's the world you want to be in. You want an ice
Yeah.
cream. She's trying to elevate consciousness, and you want some ice cream. That's why we need women.
Exactly. Oh my goodness.
I'm messing with you, Wayne.
No, I know. Yeah. I say let's start from the beginning of your story. And so you mentioned that your mother would throw shade if we didn't mention the 36 years ago that she enrolled you in Crestview Elementary. Tell us what that was like for you.
What was special about Crestview?
Yeah, what was special about Crestview?
Crestview Elementary. So, like Monique was saying, I'm from Florida, specifically Miami, Florida. I grew up in a predominantly Black community in a city that is now was incorporated about 10 years ago called Miami Gardens. When I was growing up, it was Carroll City. And so Crestview is in Carroll City. And it was the center, it still is to this day, the Center for Learning Through Writing. So, getting up at 7:30 a.m. to get to school, I'm still not a morning person. So, but elementary school, we had to do so much writing. Obviously, it was a Center for Learning Through Writing. But through that program, I met amazing women and, Black women educators who really helped create this love of writing that started from a very young age. At first, it was like a burden. Write the 3 reasons why. That was one of the first lessons we learned was how to convince people of whatever you were arguing, write the 3 reasons why, X, Y, Z. I remember teachers like Miss Bird, who every day, this was my 2nd grade teacher, we learned a new word. So she's the one who taught me about mythology and navigate and, generosity. And I loved her too, because like I have a lot of facial hair. I don't know if you can see it right now. But
I cannot.
Spirit. She had a lot of little fuzz on her face too. She just helped me feel better about myself, because here was this beautiful, smart woman, kind, and teaching me about words, and she had facial hair just like
the power of representation. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, there was Miss Holden. When I was 9 years old, actually, we published our first books as children. So, and I still have that book. This is the first book I wrote.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
And we would send these books to the annual youth fair here in Miami-Dade County. My first story was about 2 sisters and their rivalry over a prince.
Nice.
kind, went through a lot of shade, and that was my first foray into storytelling through Crestview.
That's
Wow.
fantastic
Mhm.
that there was that school that was available to you guys and kind of gave you direction for your life to become what you are now, an
Mm-hmm.
author.
Yes, absolutely. And I just feel like I grew up in an age where teachers, they honestly, they cared. They really cared. It hurts my heart today talking to like my goddaughter and hearing about teachers who just, they're on their phones. All they want to do is show movies in classes.
Oh, that's
And,
sad.
she's bored.
Yeah.
Um, Education's a different thing nowadays, but I was very blessed to come up in a time where with these women, and they had a vested interest in us being bright lights. So
Right, right.
That's awesome. Was there a moment in when you were at that school where, because was there some reluctancy at first to like having to do all that writing and do all that stuff? But was there also a moment where you were like, I love this and I want to do this for however long?
yeah, being a storyteller, that's a really good question. Trying to figure out that moment when I was like, I want to do this. And it was probably through um, reading, reading stories from like Toni Morrison, or I was probably even in elementary school or maybe middle school when I first read Octavia Butler and, like Kindred. So it was just how I felt reading those stories and how they exposed me to these new ideas and new feelings and new words that I felt like, I want to do this. Like, this is magical. And I had gotten the tools, from a young age. And I think just seeing what these women could do with their pen, it inspired me.
Hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I feel like there's always that moment where you kind of take on the writer in you. You know what I mean? Where like usually it's just there, kind of just dormant, and then there's a moment where it's like, oh nah, this is mine. I'm a do this
I am
thing.
a writer. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think when I first started writing in elementary school, it was fun to create like the little books, A Dream Come True, which I showed you all. But also, it was a necessity because I was a very rebellious child and I had a very strict mom.
Mhm.
So I would also have to share that me writing her letters, to explain.
Mhm.
Keeps them to this day. She'll pull it out. You remember when you wrote me this letter to explain why you didn't think you should be punished for this and this? And, I would just be, that was how I expressed myself and advocated for my little.
Girl, yeah, that's what I was about to say. You started advocating for
I
yourself
know,
way
right?
back when, and you still advocating what you're writing now.
Yes, yes.
Oh my goodness.
That's fantastic. That is
That's insane.
fantastic.
So I wouldn't
So,
That's
always
insane.
get my way. Of course, I wouldn't always get my way. Mom might always have the final say.
there
Even
you
mom,
go.
she encouraged.
Moms back in the day, they didn't play.
He didn't play. And my friends would be surprised though, because they would be like, how can you get away with saying this stuff to your mom? But like, as long as I was respectful, she
Yeah,
didn't mind me sharing my feelings. She encouraged it. She loved the letters actually. And
yeah.
I thank her to this day for just encouraging me to use my voice.
Awesome. So one thing you explained that fiction is the lie through which we tell the truth. Now you may have got that, but let's talk about how you've incorporated that in your writing. So tell us how you use fiction to tell the truth, and also it's your weapon of choice for advocacy. Talk about that.
Yes. So I think it was in one of my first few classes with you, Miss Franz, where you shared that nugget of inspiration. And, I really thought it was well said. If we look back, fiction writers have always done amazing work in using their stories to help move the needle, you know.
Yeah.
I think they've been able to do that because when you write fiction, you can take society's issues, and even if it's a group of people you're talking about who don't live where you live, who don't have the same background you have, you're able to relate to them. It's a way that you tell a story that can make issues just and people more relatable. You get more emotional, it just ties you more emotionally to their stories. And all the way from, like, I think when I first read this story, you know, either we're talking about Of Mice and Men, Uncle Tom's Cabin, you know,
Yes.
back in 1850s, where that story, Harriet Beecher Stowe, was one of the pivotal fiction pieces that helped
Yes,
to
it was.
move the needle in the anti-slavery movement. It fueled abolitionists, and helped change the South's viewpoint, and the North, well, everyone's of slavery, right? You think about, even I mentioned earlier, Octavia Butler, you know, Parable of the Sower in 1993, we're talking about climate change and helped to, and social oppression, you know, and it helped to inspire environmental activists and like urban survival movements, right? There are so many stories like this where they've been used to even advocate for policy changes in government. I think about this book, and it explored, like, it was not Uncle Tom's Cabin. We talked about that one. Another book in the South, and maybe it was Of Mice and Men, where it really brought to light the injustices of Jim Crow laws, and the legal system that Black people had all the chips stacked against them, right? And opened people's eyes to that. So in my writing, you know, I seek to explore some of the same issues and employ the same techniques. So yes, Burning or a Bullet. The title itself, kind of, I'm speaking to the terrible choices sometimes that we in marginalized communities, especially Black people, have to make between, you know, like advocating for ourselves, advocating for change, but facing systemic oppression, and oftentimes it's violent oppression that we're dealing with. And, you know, unfortunately, as is the case with history so often, the story takes place in 1920s. It's based on a true event that happened in Ocoee, Florida, and other communities around the nation, when it came to white communities wanting to come in and take what Black people have built. We see this today. And eminent domain. And so, you know, these are some of the things that I want to explore and have more discussions about how people resist and organize, and the importance of coming together in order to have a fighting chance.
And I think one thing that you allude to in the Burning or a Bullet is about the choice that we have to make, which is sometimes life-threatening choices. And what stories do is it helps us all, when we get to making the choices, the right choices. Fiction helps us think about making those right choices for whatever it paves the way, so to speak. It was interesting that you talked about wanting to be in a place where prophecy was inspired, because the first thing that came to my mind, I thought, that's because Noelle is a prophet in and of herself. I think that's what writers do. You know what I mean? They are communicating. A prophet to me is not so much someone who is able to tell the future, but someone who is able to explain what is going on. You know what I mean? They have that spiritual insight. And reading like Burning or a Bullet, which was historical fiction, but things were happening right in that season. I remember reading it going, dang, this is applicable today. You know what I mean? So yeah, kudos on that. Wayne, did you have something to say? Seemed like
That first off, that story was beautiful, and it made me think of something I love about fiction when it comes to, tackling, tough topics, political topics, whatever it may be. And you could probably speak to this. I don't write fiction as much, but I love reading it. So if I'm way off on this, let me know. But I feel like fiction, as opposed to nonfiction, you kind of let your guard down as a reader,
Yeah.
right? Which almost lets the more like the harder topics hit you
Yeah.
because you've already created space to let it in. So when I was going into reading your story, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a fiction story. I'm already just looking for like, what's the general story, right? And then once you're already like halfway into the story, and you're like getting these deep like hints of, racism and like all these different things, and you're like, oh, I didn't know we were going there.
Yes,
Right? I
yes.
didn't know we were going there, but we're there now, and I'm already in it, so I can't ignore it now. And I love that fiction is able to do that. I don't know if that is something that is something that reason why you might like writing fiction, but that's just something I see.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And that's very insightful. Absolutely. Like you and Monique were saying, like the ability for fiction it pulls you in, you're really just, if the author is successful, you have a connection with the character. You're interested in this character's life. Like you can relate to something about them. And for me, I found Delphine very relatable in, just she's sort of navigating a marriage that's kind of unfulfilling. And, a lot of people can relate to relationships like that. It's just that she happens to be in a time and place where she's got to navigate a whole lot of other things, as we do to this, all of us, we're navigating various challenges in our lives. And, how we go about it, how we cope, how we grow through these different plot twists and choices that we're forced to make. All of that is just relatable to every human experience. So yeah, you're able to be pulled in with that. And then if I can help educate you on something that happened in history that perhaps makes you want to dig a little bit deeper, know a little bit more, maybe inspires you to take action about, regarding certain injustices your community may be facing. Like that's always ultimately like, one of the bigger wins for me as a writer, if I can inspire action after someone reads.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your story reminded me, I don't know if have you guys ever seen Django Unchained, the movie?
Yes.
So I think your story does something similar that story does. To me, when I talk about like fiction being able to bring you in, because Django Unchained is a very comedic kind of outlandish story, right? And so you got Jamie Foxx and you got all these, Leonardo DiCaprio, all these big names, right? And there's this scene in the movie when you're like halfway through the movie, right? And there's a scene where one of the slaves is basically tied to a tree and they let the dogs basically go and basically tear him apart.
Right.
Right. And it's this random scene in the movie where you're like, oh, snap.
Why? I didn't know.
Right.
Like you didn't
And you're
know.
like, slavery, like it was real like that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm like, that's crazy. And your story reminds me of that because I'm sucked in with this story of infidelity and, just all the things that are going on there. And I'm like, oh, this is a very fun, trying to figure out where everybody's head is at, right? And then you get to the middle and you're getting these this like really heavy racism. And you're like, oh, this is real life. Like these people are fighting to be able to vote. And I'm just like, oh man. And now I have to deal with it because I'm
Right.
there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's one of the powerful things I think your story did. But I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but I'm assuming you have.
Well, now I gotta see it because it seemed like both of y'all saw it, and I want to see it now.
Yes. Kerry Washington, she's in it.
Oh, okay.
Where her slave masters put her underground in this like metal box to, punish her for trying to escape me or something. Yeah, it's deep. Miss Ron, you would love it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. When I saw that movie and then it got into the ugly, violent, the ferociousness of the violence of slavery, it was jarring to say the least, because like you following Jamie Foxx and his charismatic, funny self, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is not all fun and games and comedy. And for sure, thank you for paralleling that with Burning or a Bullet. Yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah.
Now you hit so many notes in that story. What is the truth? You talk about truth being, your writing being your weapon of choice. What is the truth that you wanted us to leave with that story? Because I mean, you hit so many notes, and it was done well. Like you felt that there was a connection. But what was the truth that you wanted the reader to walk away with?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I think there are a few truths that I wanted the reader to explore through Burning or a Bullet. Like I was mentioning, the title itself speaks to these really horrible choices that Black people and marginalized communities have had to face when it comes to, do I stand up for myself, or do I continue putting food on my table?
Yes.
My boss will fire me if I, talk about how I'm getting less pay than the white farmer,
Previous sister, right?
Exactly. And so I wanted to explore there's generational trauma, but there's also generational resistance, right? And there's this will to survive and to make sure that you're not silenced, that I think runs as a thread through our community, which is how, Delphine as a ghost, she might have, not to spoil alert, she may catch an L in the end, but you still hearing her, you hearing what she has to say.
Yes.
And, her story will be told, and people will hopefully be able to glimpse the impact that these women and men who organized in states like Florida and around the nation, Florida in particular, I don't feel like there's been enough told about Florida's activism history and the civil rights leaders that came out of Florida. People probably are more familiar with Mary McLeod Bethune, and I reference her in the story and how she helped register thousands of voters across Florida, and women in particular, getting them together in their church groups and women's ministries, and, spreading the word on how to properly register to vote, how to not be intimidated when you get there. And, you got the registrar saying this, and, oh, you have to know when your birthday is and how to spell the city properly. And they taught them, because not everyone had the privilege of an education. So they would fall victim to certain things, even as far as being, one of the characters we talk about, how she's thrown in jail, an old woman, because she doesn't get the year right that she was born on her application. And they're like, this is perjury. And that's how they try to use fear to keep us from, exercising our rights and to vote. And I wanted to share that it was really, really, the way we survived is by coming together. And I think, unfortunately, as we have grown up as a community, as the years and decades, we become further removed from the civil rights era, right? But we have, where churches were our main mode of organizing, community building.
It was our empowering centers, if you will.
Those empowering centers. And today, we're not going to church as much as we used to, right? But there are new modes of empowering centers we see growing up on social media. And I think just our ability to really hone in on how we can kind of get back to what may have been lost when we had less of the technology influence with the the closer knit communities that we had, and really coming together, fighting for some very specific issues, and organizing. I wanted to speak to that in this story as well.
I wanted to share, talk a little bit about your burning or a bullet and what's happening today.
Yeah.
Because we see under this new administration, we see big companies, they're faced that burning or a bullet. Pull your DEI programs, or we will pull our federal funding. You know what I mean? So we're seeing that, and not only in our community, but now we're seeing how under this new administration, so many of these companies are being confronted with, hey, misbehave or we'll misbehave. You know what I mean? So, and which I would love to talk a little bit about your current advocacy. Is that okay, Wayne? Take it into
Yeah,
this
that's fine. Yeah, we can go to that.
Yeah, just how you have used that same voice, that fire voice and burning or a bullet, to be a real voice in some demonstrations today. So you can talk about some of your advocacy.
Yeah, for sure. When my mom was coming up, she was handing out free Angela Davis buttons on the streets in Miami, and I know I get a lot of my militancy from her, and my father.
Right.
Write op-eds and just share their voices. So protest has always been inside me. I joined this No King's Day protest that happened on President's Day. And, just getting outside, being outside with like-minded people who are fed up across party lines. You had your there, you had your Democrats there, you had your independents there.
Yes.
Party there, you know what I'm saying? But everybody recognizes, to your point, like how dangerous this time is, and what, unfortunately, how fear has been used strategically to shift our country over into this authoritarian style of government. Fear is a very, very effective weapon. And again, I think, the truth is one of the best, what we have in our arsenal to fight it. And going out and protesting just gives you that time. I love it to, just stand together about something. You have your signs, you're in the streets, you're making sure people understand, like my sign, grab them by the profits, and telling people about the economic boycott. And to your point, Monique, we have these corporations who are choosing sides right now, and people don't realize how much power we have.
Right.
Like they're only 1% of people are these billionaires, right? They call them the 1%. We're the 99%. You know what I mean? And when we get together, there's no stopping us.
Right.
So when we can show with our dollars, who we're supporting and who we're not supporting. In this day and age, that's largely how you win. Just like they found out in the 60s with the bus boycotts, which basically like shut down parts of Mississippi in the 60s. Like, we've got to fight with our dollars and by showing up, to these town halls. I'm seeing, people speaking out. And it was funny at the protest, this older Black woman came up to me. She's like, I love that you're out here. I wish I could see more of us out here. And it was a diverse crowd, but, we were kind of speckled throughout. But at the speckles who were there, those were the ones with the bullhorns and the clipboards. They were the ones putting it all together. You know what I'm saying? People who look like you and me. So I think that as we further define what our role is going to be as a people, we've always been leaders. I know there was, after the election, there was this big thing about, y'all can have this. Black women, we sitting out right now. We tired. We told y'all to listen. We're not, we ain't doing it. We ain't fighting. Don't call us. We ain't coming to your march. But I don't believe that narrative. We took a rest, but I really do believe we've been rested now. We're back, and we're leading as we always have.
Yeah, I'm curious. How do you balance, like advocacy work and like protesting and stuff like that, but also taking care of yourself mentally and things like that. Because I feel like sometimes it can be easy to like throw all of ourselves into the work, and then it's like, oh snap, I need to take care of my mental health as well. Is that something that you think about when you're doing a lot of these things?
Yes, absolutely, Wayne. You're so right. You have to, because you can't take care of anybody else unless you take care of yourself, right? And so I'll say, like, for me, I'm a small business owner. I do my activist thing. I do my writing thing. I I manage a community cat sanctuary. I got my hands in a lot of buckets, things that I'm passionate about. But I take my time for my meditation, for my yoga, for my girlfriends. You know, I do Sunday dinners with my parents and my fiance, and you know, it's just everything has to go on the schedule. Everything has to go on the calendar. You know, to say,
And not only that, like the way things are rolling, just like you said, fear is a powerful weapon. If he got us all wrapped up in fear and all wrapped up in anger, we stop living. We stop surviving and thriving and fulfilling our dreams. And, you know, there are times, I have to say, there are times when I watch the news or hear something on the news because I ain't trying to watch it too much. And I almost want to roll over and just be like, I ain't getting up today. But we have to move past what what's being what the administration, our new administration trying to, you know, rile us all into fear and trying to incite another riot among us. We have to make sure that we keep our heads straight in the game. So I appreciate you saying that. And actually, that's important for you because you're about to have a little Kinsman
Yeah,
baby for us all. So tell us
yeah,
about that. Is the news now. You
yes,
first
yes.
time mama.
Yes, you are so right. Like self-care becomes an act of resistance for sure, right?
Right?
And I know now, like 7 months pregnant, self-care has taken more of a spotlight, because it's not just about me. When I say self-care, now it's like self plus care, right?
Nice.
I'm thinking about what's going on in this little big womb I got going on here, and I gotta focus on nutrition and making sure we get the proper rest, and whatever frame of mind I'm in, I'm affecting him. There's different, there's hormones, there's I talked about the nutrition, but whatever environmental influences that I'm under, so is little he.
Yes.
And just kind of reprioritizing is the order of the day right now.
Mhm.
So
hmm
yes, it's definitely been an interesting transition because I'm I'm what they call like geriatric pregnant, right? Like a woman of a certain age, and this is my first child. So I've
Wow.
had a long time to it's just been about me and my thing. So readjusting to making it reprioritizing for the little one is it's an interesting transformation and evolution for me right now. But I'm enjoying it very much, and I'm blessed to have a lot of support, which means the world, my fiance and my parents and my entire family and the community. It takes a tribe,
It does. It
hmm
does.
when you think about bringing a child into the world, right, and your advocacy work, does it make you want to go like 10 times harder? Like, yeah, I'm creating this world for like, how does that change how you even your outlook on like just
Yeah,
advocacy, politics, whatever that may be?
right, exactly. Because like I do feel that the activism that I take part in takes on a new meaning now, because it's like I'm not just affecting change for me, but it's my son's future, right? That I want to directly impact and make sure that these really challenging times that we're in right now are not what he's forced to live under when he comes up. Um,
Mhm.
And anything I can do, I absolutely have a greater fire under me. I was talking to one of my mentors yesterday, and she was saying, she's like, I know that you're someone, you do a lot for others, and you're into this activism, and I just want you to know, you got to start thinking differently and reprioritizing. And I'm like, I hear you 100%, but at the same time, I got to go harder. Like, I have to. That's just me.
And to be honest, you can actually go harder working smarter, because a writer has a lot of power from their desk, you know what I mean, to change things. And I have 4 kids, and honestly, I was advocating and trying to make the world a better place the whole time. You know what I mean? It's how we work as well, and just not denying your gift at the same time that you're being a mom is going to be advocacy, because you can't help but to write what's in you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And wow, kudos to you, Miss Franz. You look amazing. You are an inspiration to me. You have 4 kids. I would have never.
Well, they are grown now. And they all fight the power themselves. They are advocates, racial advocates. I mean, they are serious. They kind of spur me on a little bit.
Yes, and that's so fantastic that you were able to help nurture those spirits inside of them. Like, that is definitely what I hope to do with my future son as well.
You already doing it. What's his name?
Okay, so
do we say? Do we ask?
Do we get the exclusive drop right here?
Right.
Oh, this is.
You know what? Y'all gonna have to stay tuned, but I will share this story.
All right.
Out of respect for my fiance, because we not seeing eye to eye right now, I will say that I had basically during meditation, I was consulting my ancestors, and my great grandmother came forward, held my hand, and gave me the name that was not on my list of considerations, but it was a powerful experience. Jolts of light came through my body, and the word healer, and then the name.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
The name actually means, bringer of light. And the name is actually, was a Greek physician. It's a biblical name. So those are some clues, but I'll probably write about it later on what the name is. My fiance wants something that nobody's ever heard of. So compromise.
You can always compromise. There you go.
Oh man, I think I got the clues though. I think I
did too. I'm not gonna say it, but I
too. I'm not going either.
Too.
But just know, I think we know. So, and if for those listening, if you got to tune in biblically,
There you go. If you had some Bible schooling, they probably know too.
Yeah, they probably know too. Oh man, so I also want to know, like, what's as far as writing goes, like, what's on the horizon for you? Is there something you're currently working on now, like something new? Any sneak peeks we can get, we'll take them.
Yeah, no, like Monique was saying when she first introduced me, right now I'm really just inspired to write stories about Black Florida women throughout the generations. I am going to hopefully be wrapping up a collection of short stories, which mix historical fiction and speculative fiction. And yeah, so I'm working on a few things. Like, one story is inspired by an uncle that I actually lost to police brutality back in the 80s, and just his spirit, sharing his story and the generational effect of that loss on the family and his niece. So that's one thing I'm working on. And then working on a story set in the future, where it's an alternate reality type of tale, kind of exploring the concept of finding our partners, finding the one. And what happens if you can only sleep with the one. So physically,
You got my interest.
Right? I'm like, wait, what you mean?
Wait
by
a minute.
what if
Look, I'm moving in.
physically it's impossible to actually consummate any relationships unless they are the one. So I was just interested in this concept. So I'm exploring
Oh,
it.
that's-
Yes.
that
Well,
sounds
look,
good.
I'm gonna drop a little plug here because this is the first year that Kinsman Quarterly is looking for full manuscript works from single authors. So you get on your work. Get on your work. We are, it is competitive, so we're looking for the best of the best. But just to inspire you that we do like your work. The person that reviewed your material, Aiken JJ, he said she reminds me of Zora. She got that Zora Neil Hurston vibe. So girl, get to writing, and if especially at this time, you're gonna have a baby that's probably going to consume much of your time, but don't stop writing, and you don't have to get it all done in 1 year time frame or whatever. Give yourself as long as you need. Just make sure you're doing it consistently, because you have a voice that our generation needs.
Thank you so much. That means everything to me, Monique. Like,
Yeah.
yes, thank you for that. And I will keep writing. When the baby's sleeping, I'll take out my pen and pad.
There you go. And I like that you called me Monique. That's what you called me.
That's awesome. Well, it's been amazing getting to know you and your work. Is there any last tips you would want to give our listeners for advocacy, social justice, writing, anything that you can think of?
Yeah, no, I want people to go to your local city council and county commission meetings. Like, stay tuned. Um, we may not be watching the news. I know Monique mentioned this earlier, as often as we did in the past, because it's overwhelming and it's chaotic. But still, tune in by taking the time to go to these community meetings, see what your leaders are up to, hold them accountable. Vote.
It's time to stand up. Yeah,
stand up. Just be engaged.
Yeah,
much as you can in your own way, and it's different for everyone. But I just say attending the meetings is a good first step.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Monique, you want to plug anything?
Oh, that's it. I did my plug, girl. We're glad to have you.
Good.
Absolutely. Our first author on KQ on the Avenue, and also the very first grand prize winner of the African Diaspora Award. So for the big award anyway. So fantastic.
Thank you so much, Monique and Wayne, for having me. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I really appreciate you all believing in me to be, I guess, one of the first guests on the show. This was fun, and I look forward to more KQ on the Avenue.
Hey, all right.
KQ on the Avenue. That's it, y'all. Thank y'all for tuning in.